Welcome back everyone. Let's go ahead and do a quick little comparison between the OnePlus 9 and the OnePlus 7 Pro. Now both these phones are very interesting because the 7 Pro was a crazy popular device in 2019, and when you look at them, I mean they look kind of the same, but you would probably think the 7 Pro is the latest phone. You would think this is like the more flagship one because of the way it looks. That's not the case, the OnePlus 9 is. If you want to pick up either one of these, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. Now, side by side, you can definitely see that the OnePlus 7 Pro is just a slightly, I think, a bigger phone overall than the 9. It definitely feels like a little bit of a thicker phone, but it also feels slimmer a little bit because of the curved display. Now, the 7 Pro's display is one of its bigger assets because when you look at it, no hole punch display does have a pop-up camera, but this is a solid phone for sure in terms of the way it looks. This phone's forever going to look like this, so that means it's forever going to look like a timeless device. When you look at the 9 Pro even, it doesn't look as good as this thing. Now, I'm not a fan of the pop-up camera at all. I didn't like it. I didn't hate it either, but it was something that was just very, very strange, and it was just another piece for the phone to break. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I am a huge fan of the way this phone looks. With its curved display as well, that's a huge little advantage. Now with the OnePlus 9, you do have a little bit of a maybe better display. You had a 90Hz refresh rate on the 7 Pro. On the OnePlus 9, you do have 120Hz, so a little bit of an improvement there. But I think for all other intensive purposes, the OnePlus 9's display quality is probably better, but the OnePlus 9 still looks like a very premium phone, and it looks even better than the OnePlus 9 in my opinion. Now in terms of the thinness and thickness, I don't really know. I think maybe the 7 Pro is thicker, but it feels thinner because of the curved display. And on the back, glass backs on both. I think the 7 Pro's glass feels better for some reason. I don't know why. And you have a triple camera setup on the 7 Pro, also kind of a triple camera setup on the OnePlus 9. But in terms of the outside, that really pretty much covers it up. Not a whole lot going on. USB Type-C ports on the bottom as well. Some other bigger differences, you have IP certification on the T-Mobile version of the OnePlus 9, and you have wireless charging on this device. The 7 Pro does not support IP certification on any model or wireless charging as far as I know. So another quick little thing to keep in mind here. So in terms of that, that pretty much covers up the outside. Now, as I mentioned before, probably hitting on one of the bigger differences between these two phones is the software, hands down. You're going to be getting a much longer lasting phone from something like a OnePlus 9 than on the OnePlus 7 Pro. Is that a crazy big difference? Probably not, but I've said this for many, many years now. You're going to be getting a much longer lasting phone from this device. The 7 Pro is still a very good software device. You're still getting support right now. I think it's going to get Android 12 potentially, maybe not. I'm not really even 100% too sure, but either or, there's a root out for this thing, there's custom ROMs out for this thing too, so you're going to be set in that standpoint. It's not like tomorrow this thing's going to be outdated. That is not going to be the case, so I think that is a very important thing to keep in mind. On the OnePlus 9, on the other hand, it's just getting started with software updates, so you can get this thing today, you can get this phone next year, even the year after. It's still going to be getting software support. It's going to be lasting for a very good amount of time, so that's another pretty big advantage of this specific phone that you have rather than the OnePlus 7 Pro. So take that as you will, but that's one pretty big thing to keep in mind from everything that I've seen so far. Battery life is going to be better on something like the OnePlus 9 as well. You're getting a bigger battery size and, wireless charging on the OnePlus 9 as well. The 7 Pro's battery is still very, very big, but, no wireless charging. This device has it. It's a pretty big difference in my opinion. So in terms of that, that pretty much covers up probably one of the bigger differences between these two phones. Now let's go ahead and do a little bit of a speed comparison between both these phones. Obviously the OnePlus 9 has that faster Snapdragon 888 chipset, and the base model of the OnePlus 9 has 2 more extra gigs of RAM versus the OnePlus 7 Pro's 6 gigs of RAM on the base model. So keep that in mind, but in terms of that, let's go ahead and do the speed comparison and see which one is the faster one. Enough talking from me. Okay, now that we're back, let me clear all the apps in the background, and these are going to be cleared out in like 1 second. There we go. Let's go and hop out of here. Let's do phone calls, 3, 2, 1. And kind of the same thing, I'm not really too sure. Animation speeds are probably going to be roughly around the same. Messages, 3, 2, 1. About the same. I think the OnePlus 9 was faster. Chrome, 3, 2, 1. Probably on different web pages. There we go. Hopping out of this one. Camera, 3, 2, 1. I don't really know which one was faster. Maybe the 7 Pro, but the 9 was just right behind it. Play Store is 3, 2, 1. Actually, iPhone's OnePlus 7 Pro, I think, may have been a little bit faster there. Very surprising. Always interesting to see those types of things. Scrolling through, you can definitely see, I think the OnePlus 9 is the faster one there. Scrolling back up, I think the OnePlus 9 definitely is the faster one when it comes down to that one. Hopping out of this one, as always, a bunch of these third-party apps. Let's go and do Fruit Ninja, 3, 2, 1. And you can see even clicking on the app was so much of a faster experience on the OnePlus 9 than on the OnePlus 7 Pro. And the OnePlus 9 is loaded. The 7 Pro isn't actually that far off to get into that next panel. Hopping out of this one thing that I've always said about the OnePlus 7 Pro is getting out of an app from this humongously curved display is always an experience. Okay, there we go, finally got out of it. Let's get out of this one. And that's the one big disadvantage of a curved display, but I still like curved displays. Facebook, 3, 2, 1. OnePlus 9 was faster, OnePlus 7 Pro was literally right behind it. Temple Run 2, 3, 2, 1. And you can see the OnePlus 9 is miles ahead of the 7 Pro. I mean, it was very close to the 7 Pro, still loading where the Temple Run 2 on the OnePlus 9 was fully loaded. So you can see there was quite a bit of a difference between these two. Getting into some gameplay, let's see if there's going to be a massive difference. I'm going to probably say there's not going to be that big of a difference. That was actually pretty crazy of a difference if I'm going to say so myself. Hopping out of this specific app, let's go ahead and do something like Instagram, which I don't have here. I do 3, 2, 1. And about the same. Let's do Snake versus Blocks, 3, 2, 1. And the OnePlus 9 I think was faster just by a little bit though. Getting into some gameplay yet again. I don't think there's going to be that big of a difference in the gameplay wise. This is a pretty basic game. Hopping out of this one, let's go and do Bofa, which I don't have. Let's do Dropbox, which I also don't have. Let's do Quizlet, 3, 2, 1. OnePlus 9 was faster. Hopping out of this one, let's go and do Snapchat, 3, 2, 1. OnePlus 9 I think was faster but very close. Twitter, 3, 2, 1. I think the OnePlus 9 was faster there. Hopping out of this one, let's go and do Thank You, 3, 2, 1. And I think the OnePlus 9 was faster there, but it was still very close. Getting to some gameplay, as you guys can see, about the same thing. There wasn't really that big of a difference. Actually, the 7 Pro looks to be a lot more glitchier, as you guys can see. The 9 looks to be way faster. That's actually one thing I wouldn't expect to see that big of a difference between the two. And we can go and end it off with Netflix, 3, 2, 1. You can see the OnePlus 9 again was the faster one, so definitely when it comes down to this specific speed comparison, I mean the OnePlus 7 Pro I think is actually still a very fast device. I think it still has a lot of capability. I wouldn't necessarily count it as being one of the worst performing phones I've tested so far, but it definitely is slower than the OnePlus 9. So far from the two apps that I've tested for management, it seems to be about the same, but I definitely would say going from a OnePlus 9 to a 7 Pro, I think would be a pretty decent improvement in terms of the overall, smoothness of the phone and the app opening speeds and all that stuff. That was one thing that I immediately saw, and I would definitely say it would be a pretty decent experience. RAM management seemed to be about the same, but that pretty much covers the speed comparison. Let's go and hit on the cameras. As talked about before, you can see we have triple camera setups on both, kind of. The OnePlus 7 Pro has that wide telephoto and ultra-wide sensor, where the OnePlus 9 has that wide, ultra-wide, and a color filter camera. Now, I definitely wouldn't be the first one to say this, but I think the OnePlus 7 Pro's camera overall is actually pretty decent. I don't want to say it's the best, but 4K 60 on the back pop-up camera is 1080p, 16 megapixels. It's been pretty much the same on every single OnePlus device. But I would say if you're using this phone, you're not really going to be someone who's going to complain about the camera too much, but you're also going to be somebody who's probably not going to brag about their camera lens. I think that's the best way to put it. The UI of this camera, I think, is better than the OnePlus 9's. I don't understand what OnePlus is thinking. It's like the same software, but that one, the new one, is so much worse than this one. But this camera quality, you have that telephoto lens too, so you can zoom in a bunch. You can see that little hair that I had there. And I'll probably tell you, if you had to use this phone, it would be good. I don't think you'd be complaining about too much. But I think you're probably going to be getting a much better experience from something like a OnePlus 9. But the best experience is from Samsung phones, as I mentioned before. With something like the OnePlus 9, you're going to be getting 8K capability on the back, still maintaining 4K 60. On top of that, that ultra-wide sensor I think is much better on the OnePlus 9 as well, so I think that's another pretty big advantage. As I mentioned before, you were still only getting 1080p on the front, and I've said this for quite a bit of time, but I just like having 4K 60 on the front. Neither one of these phones have it, and I think that's even sadder for something like the OnePlus 9 more than the 7 Pro. This phone should have had that capability, it didn't, and there's nothing we can do about it. But I think the OnePlus 9's camera is better for sure, but the 7 Pro isn't too far off. So hopefully that kind of made sense, and to kind of sum up this video and to answer the question, should you buy a OnePlus 7 Pro? Should you buy a OnePlus 9? Well, this is pretty much what I'll tell you. I think buying a OnePlus 9 is the better phone. It's going to last you much longer. It's going to be a more capable phone overall. It's not going to be like the perfect phone ever, but it's going to be good enough and it's going to be better than I think something like a OnePlus 7 Pro. I think the 7 Pro still has a lot of capability. It's not even funny. This phone looks beautiful. It's going to maintain its way it's looking forever, basically. It has the pop-up camera, which is kind of a novelty, but it looks cool. The software is still great. The performance really wasn't that far off, as you guys saw. The 7 Pro and the 9 were pretty close in performance, and the RAM management seemed to be about the same too. Day to day, even when I'm messing with this phone right now, it doesn't really feel like an old phone. It doesn't look like an old phone. It's just like maybe my only disadvantage is the IP certification, battery life. My only gripes with this phone are like IP certification, the lack of wireless or reverse wireless charging, front camera a little bit, and I think that's it. If this phone, if you're willing to custom ROM it, this phone's literally going to last forever. The OnePlus 9, on the other hand, is the better phone. It's the newer one. It should be the better phone. It doesn't really feel as premium or look as good as something like a 7 Pro, which is kind of interesting. The front camera is like the same on both of these, except this one is pop-up camera on the OnePlus 7 Pro, which is kind of more of a novelty. The back camera of the OnePlus 9 is better. The software, I guess, is going to last you longer. It's faster. Battery life is going to be better on this device as well. But I think the 7 Pro is still a very good phone. If you have the money, this phone is cheaper than the OnePlus 9. So I'd probably recommend getting a 7 Pro if you want to. But I think the OnePlus 9 is the better option, ultimately for, the money's sake. If you have all the money in the world, get the OnePlus 9. But the 7 Pro is a very solid option still too. So in terms of that pretty much covers it up. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys get that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.